On the edge of Europe, where the rocks meet the roaring Atlantic Ocean, the land keeps what has been hidden for centuries. Archaeologists find traces of settlements dating back tens of thousands of years. Stone tips, charred fire pits, bones of animals. All of this is a silent scream from the past. But who lived here? Cro-Magnons? Neanderthals? Or a forgotten people whose name has been erased from the pages of history? Scientists acknowledge that the DNA of modern Portuguese still resonates with echoes of these tribes. The official version remains silent. It fears to tell the truth. Because the truth shatters the familiar image of the past. It is no coincidence that Portugal has become a crossroads of three worlds: Europe, Africa, and the ancient ocean. Here, the paths of civilizations long gone converged. And the question is, what will happen if we open our eyes and look into the blood of the people to see the mystery that has been concealed for millennia? The name Portugal seems simple, but it is an illusion. In Latin chronicles, Portus Caela is mentioned. A port at the Douro River. A beautiful explanation. Too convenient. Some scholars insist that Caelae is a Celtic word meaning fortress. Others assure it is a marker from the Phoenicians, traders who knew how to leave secret signs in names. There is a theory about the Carthaginians, whose trading posts stood along the coast. Why all the disputes over one name? Because behind it lies more than just a toponym. A name as a code. A name as a seal. It preserves the traces of civilizations that have long since disappeared. Official versions call this translation variance. But what if the truth is different? What if the very name of the country is the key to understanding its hidden roots? Are you ready to accept that the mystery of Portugal is encoded in its very name? Legends have painted a picture over the centuries that people wanted to believe. Medieval chronicles assured that the Portuguese are descendants of the Lusitanians, warriors who challenged Rome. Folk tales linked them with the sons of Noah, who survived the flood. Other tales trace them back to the Celts from the cold north or to the mysterious Tartessus, rich in gold and silver but vanished without a trace. Beautiful, solemn, but false. DNA shatters these tales. Genetics reveals that lineage R1b arrived long before the Celts. In the genome, E1b1b surfaces, a memory of the Berbers, J1 and J2, traces of the Phoenicians. Legends concealed, genes preserved. Everything intertwined. Africa, Europe, the East. Official history is shy to speak of this. But imagine if someone told you directly, the tales were a smokescreen. Are you ready to learn the truth that breaks the familiar image of the past? The Iberian Peninsula is not just land. It is an archive, written in stone and bone. Here, they found settlements over 30,000 years old. Stone tips, charred fire pits, bones of animals. In the southern caves, traces of Neanderthals. They disappeared, but their blood remains. In the Bronze Age, Tartessus flourished, a realm of silver and copper. It collapsed, as if someone erased it from the map. Only ruins and writings that no one has read remain. But the most frightening find is the culture of bell-shaped cups. 4,800 years ago, outsiders arrived in this land. Their ceramics, their copper daggers, their amber amulets, and along with them, a sharp change in DNA. The haplogroup R1b emerges. Previous lineages disappear. This is not evolution. This is replacement. What if the truth is that it was then that the genetic map of Europe was rewritten? Are you ready to hear who was behind this turning point? Among the vanished civilizations that left a mark in Portugal, the Tartessians hold a special place. Herodotus wrote about a people rich in silver and copper. Their cities shone with trade. Their language sounded different from that of their neighbors. And then they disappeared. Suddenly, as if someone erased them from the face of the earth. Only mines, jewelry, and strange writings remain, which no one has been able to decipher. Later, the Phoenicians arrived, They left trading posts and a mark in the blood, haplogroups J1 and J2. The Carthaginians settled on the coast. Celts and Iberians mixed with them. All of it intertwined and dissolved. Official versions call this cultural contacts. But do contacts erase entire peoples? Imagine if someone told you, in the genes of modern Portuguese, Tartessus, Phoenician Carthage, and forgotten Celts still live. Are you ready to accept that blood keeps what history tried to conceal? The beginning of the 21st century. Scientists dare to look deep into the DNA of the Portuguese. And here comes the shock. 7 out of 10 men carry haplogroup R1b, an overwhelming majority. But alongside, what has been silent for centuries emerges. 1 in 10 has the African lineage E1b1b, a memory of Berbers and Arab conquests. 5 to 7% carry J1 and J2, the mark of the Phoenicians and peoples of the East. These are not details. This is a revolution. Genetics has shown Portugal is not just Europe. It is a junction of 3 worlds: the Atlantic, Africa, the Eastern Mediterranean. Official textbooks call this cultural exchange. But genes speak more harshly. It was intervention. It was mixing. It was forever. What if the truth is that genetic memory holds what they tried to erase from chronicles? Are you ready to hear the truth that has been hidden for centuries? Legends elevated the Lusitanians, unyielding warriors who challenged Rome. They were called descendants of Noah. They were linked to the Celts who came from the north. All this sounded grand, but genetics shattered the myth. The lineage R1b appeared here long before the Celts. It came with the people of bell-shaped cups who changed the face of all Iberia. In the blood of the Portuguese, E1b1b surfaces, a trace of Berbers. There is also J1 and J2, a memory of the Phoenicians. These genes were concealed for centuries. They were hidden behind tales of heroes and myths of the flood. But blood doesn't lie. It has preserved what they wanted to erase. Imagine if someone told you directly, all official history is a smokescreen. Are you ready to accept the truth that the origins of Portugal lie in the merging of peoples that have long since disappeared? After the fall of Rome, Portugal became a thoroughfare for peoples. Suevi, Vandals, Alano-Iranians, Visigoths. Each left a mark. In the genome, lines I1 and G2A are still read, a memory of those times. But the real turning point came in the 8th century. Arabs and Berbers flooded through Gibraltar. This was not just a conquest. This was a break. The southern lands became part of the caliphate, and with Islam came haplogroup E1b1b. Africa forever intertwined with the blood of Portugal. The north preserved a Germanic trace. 2 forces collided here head-on. Textbooks write, cultural interaction. But the truth is different. This was a war of worlds. This was blood and replacement. What if they told you that in the DNA of the Portuguese, the whisper of the desert and the voice of the steppe are still heard? Are you ready to accept that the past of this country is a constant battle of civilizations? The 9th century. A small possession appears on the map, Portugal. It was created by Count Vimaranus Perez. Formally, it is land belonging to Leon. But something else is brewing inside. A special nobility, a special memory, a special blood. In the 12th century, Afonso I the Great declares independence. Thus, the Kingdom of Portugal is born. But the main thing is not in politics. The main thing is in the DNA. Here, the lines of Celts and Iberians, descendants of Romans and Visigoths, Berbers with their E1b1b, and Phoenicians with J1 and J2 intertwined, all blended into a single mosaic. Official history speaks of state building. But is it just building? It is an explosion. It is an alloy. It is the birth of a people on the ruins of empires. Imagine if someone told you, from the very beginning, Portugal was created as a junction of civilizations. Are you ready to see that its roots are not a myth, but a shocking intertwining of three worlds? Portugal is a tiny country on the edge of Europe, but its traces are found all over the world. Today, up to 11 million descendants live outside their homeland. Brazil, Angola, Cape Verde, Macau. This is not just geography. It is blood stretched across oceans. In the 15th century, ships depart from Lisbon. Vasco da Gama, Bartolomeo Dias. They carry crosses, flags, and genes. Lineages R1b, E1b1b, and J1 go to Africa, India, South America. Textbooks call this colonization. But the truth runs deeper. This was a genetic imprint, forever etched into other peoples. Portugal became a hub connecting three continents. But ask yourself, what if the roots of this global expansion trace back to an era when mysterious arrivals were already altering DNA on this land? Are you ready to learn who initiated this mystery? About 4,800 years ago, a mysterious people appeared in Portugal. Their symbol is the bell-shaped cups, strange-shaped ceramics, copper daggers, amber jewelry. It all seems to have come from nowhere. Archaeologists find their traces throughout Iberia. But the most striking aspect is hidden not in the artifacts. At this moment, there is a sharp change in DNA. The haplogroup R1b emerges. Old lineages disappear as if erased. This is not evolution. This is a revolution. Scientists cautiously refer to this as a genetic shift. But does a shift look like this? It looks more like population replacement, like invasion, like displacement. Official history is afraid to speak about this directly. But what if this is when real Portugal began? Are you ready to accept that its origins are the result of the arrival of a foreign people about whom we still know almost nothing? Haplogroup R1b is the key to understanding the genetics of Portugal. Today, it is carried by almost 7 out of 10 men. But the truth is much darker than it seems. Earlier, scientists said this lineage was the legacy of the Celts. A convenient version, beautiful, but false. New studies have shown that the subclade DF27 appeared in Iberia long before the Celts. Its share in Portugal is record-breaking, as it is almost non-existent outside its borders. It is the signature of the Atlantic, a signature that cannot be erased. In the Bronze Age, bearers of R1b displaced earlier farmers with lineages G2A and I1. They were simply swept away. Scientists debate, where did they come from? The steppes of Eastern Europe? The Caucasus? Southern Siberia? Or perhaps the mysterious Sumerians? There are no answers yet. But the facts are alarming. The replacement happened swiftly, as if an entire people vanished. And what if the truth is that the birth of Portugal began with the largest genetic upheaval in European history? But Portugal is not only R1b. There is an African trace in the genome. 1 in 10 men carries haplogroup E1b1b. It came along with Berbers and Arabs when the Caliphate engulfed the southern part of the country. In the south, this trace is particularly evident. There are also eastern markers, J1 and J2. This is the memory of the Phoenicians and Carthaginians, traders and seafarers. Their share is small, 5 to 7%. But they are the ones who connect Portugal with the eastern Mediterranean. In rare cases, G2A and I1 appear, echoes of the first farmers and hunters. Official science talks about cultural contacts. But blood speaks more harshly. This is not contact. This is mixing. This is replacement. This is survival. Imagine if someone told you, within every Portuguese person lives a memory of 3 worlds, Africa, Europe, and the East. Are you ready to accept that the genome holds secrets that have been erased from the chronicles? The land of Portugal has always been a battlefield of empires. The 1st century BC, the Romans arrive. Lusitania becomes a province. The 5th century, the fall of Rome, and the Suevi, Alans, and Visigoths take the stage. The 8th century, a new blow. Arabs and Berbers cross Gibraltar. Southern Portugal turns into part of the Caliphate. Language change, faith change, blood change, lineage. E1b1b is inscribed forever in the DNA. The North preserves a Germanic trace, the South an African one. Official chronicles speak of influences. But does influence leave scars in the genome? This was conquest. This was upheaval. This was a conflict of worlds. Yet, it was in these storms that a new identity was born. What if the truth is that Portugal is not a child of one culture, but a product of the eternal war of empires? Are you ready to see that its blood is a chronicle of conquests? The 12th century. Afonso there proclaims independence. Thus, the Kingdom of Portugal is born. At first, small and vulnerable. But within 2 centuries, it expands its borders, pushing out Muslim dynasties. And then, an explosion occurs. The 15th century transforms Lisbon into the gates of the entire world. Vasco da Gama opens the way to India. Bartolomeo Dias rounds the Cape of Good Hope. Ships sail to Africa and South America. With them go genes. Lineages R1b, E1b1b, and J1 are found in Brazil, Angola, India, and Macau. Official versions call this the Age of Great Discoveries. But it was not just the discovery of lands. It was the dissemination of blood. It was interference in the destinies of entire peoples. Imagine if someone told you, the DNA of Portugal lives today in millions of people across 3 continents. Are you ready to accept that a small country has left such a mark on the genome of the planet? The era of glory gave way to downfall. The 16th century, Portugal comes under Spanish rule. The 17th, England and the Netherlands tear its colonies away. The 18th, the country loses influence, clinging to remnants of overseas holdings. The 19th century brings a new blow. Britain and France dictate the terms. Millions leave their homeland, carrying away language and blood. Diasporas grow, the metropolis weakens. Official chronicles call this a crisis. But a scar remains in the DNA. Mass movements, mixing, loss of former cohesion. This was not just a political defeat. This was a fracture of the people. Imagine if someone told you, in the blood of modern Portuguese lives, the memory of defeats no less than of victories. Are you ready to accept that their genetics preserve not only the glory of an empire, but also the trace of its downfall? The 20th century hit Portugal like a storm. The First World War, thousands of soldiers never returned home. The 30s, Salazar's regime, censorship, fear, a dictatorship that held the country for decades. The Second World War passed it by, but poverty and repression became everyday life. The 60s. A new blow. Colonial wars in Africa. Young men went off to Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau. Many did not return. Families awaited letters that stopped coming. Hundreds of thousands emigrated to France, the USA, Brazil. Diasporas grew, and the country emptied out. The DNA records new movements, new lineages. But most importantly, inside accumulated rage. The people were tired. The people wanted change. What will happen if people driven to despair rise up? Are you ready to hear how one day the entire system collapsed in a single morning? The 70s. Lisbon. Soldiers take to the streets with rifles, with nails in their barrels. There are no shots. There is a revolution. The Carnation Revolution topples the regime that had held the country for decades. The dictatorship falls in one day. The people breathe freedom for the first time in a long time. Fado songs are revived. Old traditions return. But with this comes the new. Migrants pour into the country from former colonies. Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde. They brought their blood, their genes. The African trace in the DNA of the Portuguese strengthens. Mixing continues. Portugal becomes a crossroads of 3 worlds once again. Official chronicles call this democratization. But it was more than that. It was a turning point that changed both politics and blood. Imagine if someone told you, modern Portugal was born not only in Parliament but also in the genome. Are you ready to learn what the latest research has revealed? The 21st century. Scientists uncover the genome of the Portuguese, and the familiar history crumbles. 7 out of 10 men carry R1b, primarily the subclade DF27, almost unique to Iberia. 1 in 10 carries E1b1b, a trace of Berbers and Arabs. 5 to 7% carry J1 and J2, the mark of the Phoenicians and Carthaginians. The rest are tiny remnants of ancient farmers G2A and hunters I1. Autosomal analysis has shown Portugal is a hub of 3 continents: Atlantic component, Mediterranean component, African component. Everything intertwined. Textbooks remain silent, but genes speak. This is not a myth. This is a fact. Imagine if someone told you, in the blood of every Portuguese person is encoded the chronicle of Europe, Africa, and the East at the same time. Are you ready to accept that the genome of this small country is a living encyclopedia of ancient civilizations? Despite wars, conquests, and dictatorships, Portugal has stood firm. It has preserved the most important: memory, language, and blood. In the DNA of the people live Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons, Celts and Romans, Berbers and Arabs, Phoenicians and Carthaginians. Each haplogroup, R1b, E1b1b, J1, J2, is a chapter in a book written not in ink but in lives. From tiny Portugal grew a maritime power that changed the map of the world. Today, genetics confirms Portugal is not just the edge of Europe. It is the crossroads of 3 continents: the Atlantic, Africa, the East. This is not a legend. This is a fact. But imagine if someone told you, every Portuguese person is a living chronicle of humanity. Are you ready to accept that this tiny country holds in its blood the history of the entire Mediterranean and Atlantic?